Security Chief Du-1 stared at the blinking red light on his control panel. For the third time this week, something had triggered the security sensors on Level 4 of the Stellar Horizon Research Station. He rubbed his tired eyes and checked the readings again. "Computer, run a full scan of Level 4, he ordered. His voice echoed in the quiet control room. The computer's response came quickly. "Scan complete. No unauthorized life forms detected." Du-1 frowned. This made no sense. The security system was the best in the galaxy, designed by the brightest minds from 7 different alien civilizations. Yet something was clearly wrong. Items had gone missing from the laboratories. Important research data had disappeared from secure terminals, but every scan showed nothing unusual. He pressed a button on his communication device. "Officer Yun-Su, please report to the security office." Minutes later, Yun-Su entered. The young security officer's antenna twitched nervously. "Another alert, Chief." "Yes, same as before." "The sensors detect something, but the scans show nothing." Du-1 pulled up the security footage on the main screen. "Look at this." The screen showed an empty hallway. Suddenly, a storage unit's door opened and closed by itself. No one was visible in the footage. "That's impossible," Yun-Su said. "Our cameras can detect even cloaked beings. They can see through any known stealth technology." "Exactly." Du-1 stood up and walked to the window overlooking the station's main hall. "We've checked for energy signatures, quantum disturbances, and temporal anomalies. Nothing." A soft beep interrupted their conversation. Director Hei-Yun's face appeared on the communication screen. Her expression was serious. "Chief Du-1, we have another problem. The data from the new propulsion experiment is missing." Du-1's shoulders tensed. The propulsion research was one of the station's most important projects. "When did this happen?" "Just now," Hei-Yun replied. "The interesting part is that the data wasn't stolen through the network. Someone physically accessed the terminal in the lab." "But that's—" Yun-Su started. "Impossible," Hei-Yun finished. "Apparently not. Chief, I'm calling an emergency council meeting. Whatever we're dealing with, it's beyond our regular security measures." An hour later, Du-1 sat at the large round table in the council chamber. Around him were the station's senior staff. Director Hei-Yun, Head Engineer Min-ji, Science Officer Su-min, and Lieutenant Yun-Ki. All of them were the best in their fields, representing the most advanced species in the galaxy. "Our security systems are failing," Du-1 reported. "We can detect that something is wrong, but we can't find what's causing it." Min-ji spoke up. "Could it be a new type of technology we haven't encountered before?" "That's unlikely," Su-min replied. "Our systems are designed to detect any form of technology, known or unknown. They work on basic universal principles." Director Hei-Yun was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that surprised everyone. "Maybe that's our problem. We're too advanced." The room fell silent. "What do you mean?" Lieutenant Yun-Ki asked. "I've been thinking," Hei-Yun continued. "We've evolved beyond certain basic security measures. We rely completely on advanced technology. But what if the answer isn't in our advanced systems?" She pressed a button, and a personnel file appeared on everyone's screens. "I suggest we consult someone with a different perspective. Someone who still understands simple security measures." Du-1 read the name on the file. Jai-Ho Park, Human Security Specialist. A human. Im-Ki's voice showed clear doubt. "Their species barely has interstellar travel." "Exactly," Hei-Yun smiled. "Sometimes you need an old-fashioned approach to solve a new problem." As Du-1 looked at the human's file, he realized this might be their best option. After all, when your most advanced technology fails, maybe it's time to try something simple. Jai-Ho Park arrived at the Stellar Horizon Station early the next morning. He carried only a simple black bag, which seemed strange to the aliens who were used to seeing security experts with advanced scanning equipment. The human looked ordinary in his plain uniform. Nothing like the prestigious alien security specialists they usually worked with. Director He-yun met him at the docking bay. "Welcome to Stellar Horizon, Specialist Park. Thank you for coming on such short notice." "Thank you for having me," Jai-ho replied, looking around the impressive station with clear interest. "I read the report about your situation. It's quite unusual." They walked through the station's main corridor, where various alien species went about their daily work. Many of them stopped to stare at Jai-ho. Humans were rare on advanced research stations like this one. In the security office, Chief Do-won and Lieutenant Yun-ki waited with the rest of the security team. Yun-ki didn't try to hide his skepticism when Jai-ho entered. "This is who we're putting our hopes on," Yun-ki whispered to Do-won. "His species still uses physical keys for some of their buildings." Do-won gave him a stern look. "Director He-yun believes he can help. Let's hear what he has to say." Jai-ho set his bag down and listened carefully as Do-won explained the situation in detail. He showed the security footage of doors opening by themselves and items disappearing from locked rooms. "May I see your security system?" Jai-ho asked. Officer Yoon-soo stepped forward and displayed the complex array of scanning equipment. "We have quantum detection fields, energy signature analyzers, and temporal displacement sensors. Nothing can move through the station without being detected by at least one of these systems." Jai-ho nodded. "Impressive technology. But tell me, do you have any simple motion sensors or pressure plates in the floor?" The aliens looked at each other in confusion. "Those are primitive technologies," Yun-ki said. "We haven't used such basic devices in centuries. Sometimes the old ways work best," Jai-ho replied. He opened his bag and took out what looked like a small container of fine powder. "May I?" Director He-yun nodded, curious about what the human planned to do. Jai-ho walked to the doorway where the last incident occurred. He sprinkled some of the powder on the floor. The aliens watched with a mixture of confusion and interest. "What is that?" Minji asked, joining them from the engineering department. "Talcum powder," Jai-ho answered. "Sometimes the simplest tools can show us what the most advanced technology misses." "Powder." Yun-ki laughed. "How is that going to help us catch an intruder that can evade quantum detection?" Just then, the security alarm blinked again. Something had triggered the sensors in a nearby corridor. Everyone rushed to investigate. But like before, the advanced scans showed nothing unusual. Jai-ho walked calmly to his powder trap and pointed to the floor. There, clearly visible in the white powder, were footprints. They were unlike any species known to the station. The aliens stared in amazement. "But how?" Yoon-soo asked. "Our sensors should have detected any physical presence. Your sensors look for energy signatures, technological devices, and biological signs," Jai-ho explained. "But what if your intruder isn't using any of those? What if they're using something so basic that your advanced systems don't even think to look for it?" Director He-yun looked at the footprints with new understanding. "Sometimes we become so focused on advanced solutions that we forget the basics." "Exactly," Jai-ho said. "Now that we know our intruder leaves physical traces, we can start looking for them in the right way." He turned to Chief Do-won. "With your permission, I'd like to set up some old-fashioned security measures. Nothing fancy, just simple physical ways to detect and track movement." Do-won nodded, beginning to see the value in this human's primitive but practical approach. Even Yun-ki looked thoughtful, though he tried not to show it. "Sometimes," Jai-ho added with a small smile, "the best solution isn't the most advanced one." Jai-ho spent his first full day on the Stellar Horizon walking through every level of the station. He ignored the advanced security panels and scanning equipment, instead running his hand along walls and looking closely at floor corners. Security Officer Yoon-soo followed him, watching with growing curiosity. "What exactly are we looking for?" Yoon-soo asked as Jai-ho stopped to examine an air vent. "Signs," Jai-ho replied, pulling out a small flashlight from his pocket. "Every movement leaves traces. See these marks here?" He pointed to tiny scratches around the vent's edge. Something has been removing and replacing this cover. Su leaned in closer. Our maintenance robots don't use this vent. They have their own service tunnels. Exactly. Jeho made a note on his tablet. Your intruder is using the basic structure of the station to move around. They're avoiding the high-tech corridors and security checkpoints completely. As they continued their inspection, they met head engineer Minji near the main laboratory. She was studying the security logs again, trying to find patterns in the system's failures. Any luck with your traditional methods? Minji asked, trying to sound polite despite her doubt. Jeho nodded. Actually, yes. Your intruder is quite clever. They're using the station's maintenance paths, the basic infrastructure that everyone takes for granted. He pulled up an old-style paper map of the station. Minji and Su looked surprised. They hadn't seen paper used for diagrams in years. Look, Jeho pointed to several spots he had marked. Every theft happened near these maintenance access points, but your security systems don't monitor these areas closely because they're considered too basic to be a threat. Minji's expression changed from doubt to interest. That's actually quite logical. We focus our security on protecting against advanced threats. No one would think to use such simple routes. Their discussion was interrupted by Lieutenant Yunki's voice over the communication system. Security alert in Laboratory 7. Something's happening right now. Jeho quickly pulled something from his bag. Simple string with small bells attached. Show me the fastest way to Lab 7, he said to Minji. They rushed to the laboratory. When they arrived, the security team was already there, scanning the room with their advanced equipment. As usual, they found nothing. Check the vents, Jeho said, quickly moving to the corner of the room. He tied his belled string across the vent opening, making sure it wasn't visible from inside. What good will that do? Yunki asked, still skeptical of these primitive methods. Wait and watch, Jeho replied quietly. They didn't have to wait long. Within minutes, the bells jingled softly. Something had touched the string. Jeho quickly sprayed the air around the vent with a fine mist from a water bottle. For a brief moment, they all saw it, a shadowy outline moving through the water droplets. There's your intruder, Jeho said calmly. They're using some kind of advanced camouflage, but they still have to move through physical space. They still disturb the air. They still make ripples in water droplets. The security team stared in amazement. For the first time, they had actually seen evidence of the intruder with their own eyes. It's so simple, Minji whispered. All our advanced technology, and we were defeated by water drops and string with bells. Jeho smiled. Sometimes the old ways work best because they're unexpected. Your intruder was prepared for quantum scanners and energy fields. They weren't prepared for water spray and bells. Even Unki looked impressed now. So how do we catch them? We go back to basics, Jeho replied, pulling more items from his bag. Who's ready to learn about some old Earth security techniques? The aliens gathered around, suddenly very interested in what other simple tools the human had brought with him. Sometimes, they realized, moving forward meant taking a step back first. The next morning, Director He-yun called an emergency meeting. The station's main conference room was filled with tension as Jeho presented his findings to the senior staff. Our intruder is using the station's basic structure in ways we didn't expect, Jeho explained, pointing to his hand-drawn map on the screen. They'd move through the maintenance system, but not in the way maintenance robots do. They're creating new paths. Chief Duwon leaned forward. How can you be sure? Jeho displayed several images he had taken. Look at these thermal readings from the ventilation system. I used a basic temperature sensor, nothing advanced. There are warm spots in places where there shouldn't be any heat. Minji studied the images with growing interest. These patterns, they show regular movement, like someone using these paths frequently. Exactly, Jeho continued. But there's more. He showed them a collection of small items, bent metal pieces, scratches on vent covers, and dust patterns he had collected. These tell us something important about our intruder. Officer Yoon-soo looked confused. What do they tell us? They're small, Jai-ho explained. Much smaller than any known species on this station. And they're physically climbing through these spaces, not using anti-gravity or teleportation technology. The revelation caused excited whispers around the room. Lieutenant Yun-ki, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. So we're not looking for an invisible intruder. We're looking for a very small one. Yes, Jai-ho confirmed. One that's probably using some kind of camouflage technology, but they still need to move physically through space. That's why your advanced sensors couldn't detect them. They were looking for something much larger. Director Hae-yun nodded thoughtfully. This changes our approach completely. What do you suggest, Specialist Park? Jai-ho pulled out several simple devices from his bag. We set traps. Not high-tech ones. They'll expect those. We use basic tools. Pressure plates, motion sensors, and something I call sticky paths. Sticky paths? Minji asked. Jai-ho smiled and pulled out a roll of clear tape. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best. We place these in certain areas. If our small friend walks across them, they'll leave footprints we can analyze. The alien staff looked at the tape with mixture of doubt and curiosity. But after yesterday's success with the water spray, no one dismissed the idea. There's one more thing, Jai-ho added, becoming serious. I think I know what they're after. Notice how they only take specific data. Data about new technologies. Chief Do-won's eyes widened. They're not just stealing random information. They're gathering intelligence. Industrial espionage, Jai-ho confirmed, but done in a very clever way. They knew your advanced security would be looking for advanced threats. They used that assumption against you. Director Hae-yun stood up. Then we have no time to waste. Specialist Park, what do you need to set your traps? Just a few hours and some help from engineering, Jai-ho replied. And maybe someone who knows the ventilation system well. Minji raised her hand. I'll help. This is the most interesting project I've worked on in years. As the meeting ended, even the most skeptical staff members were talking excitedly about Jai-ho's plan. Sometimes they were learning. The best solutions didn't need to be complicated. They just needed to be smart. Jai-ho worked with Minji and Officer Yoon-soo through the station's quiet night cycle, setting up their simple but effective traps. They placed pressure plates near key access points, installed basic motion detectors in the ventilation system, and created sticky paths in strategic locations. These motion detectors are so basic, Minji said, examining one of the devices. They only detect physical movement, nothing else. That's exactly why they'll work. Jai-ho explained as he secured another detector. Our intruder expects complex scanning systems. They won't look for something this simple. Lieutenant Yum-ki joined them, carrying more supplies. Despite his initial doubts, he had volunteered to help. The sticky paths are already showing results, he reported. We found more footprints. They're unlike anything in our species database. Jai-ho nodded, unsurprised. Good. Now we know they're still active. Time for the next phase. He pulled out several small mechanical devices from his bag. These are what we call tripwires. Very old technology, but very effective. The team worked methodically, setting up the tripwires in carefully chosen locations. Jai-ho showed them how to place them, so they would be nearly invisible. Each wire connected to a simple alarm system that would alert them immediately if triggered. What if they detect these traps? Yoon-soo asked. That's the clever part, Jai-ho replied. If they avoid one trap, they'll have to move into the path of another. We're not trying to catch them immediately. We're trying to guide their movement. As they worked, Chief Do-won's voice came through their communication devices. We have movement in Section C. Something triggered the first pressure plate. The team moved quickly but quietly to their designated positions. Jiho had prepared them for this moment, explaining exactly what each person should do. This was different from their usual high-tech security responses. Remember, Jiho whispered, no quantum scanners, no energy fields. Those will only alert them. Watch the physical space. Look for small movements. Listen for soft sounds. They waited in darkness. Minutes passed slowly. Then they heard it. A faint clicking sound, like tiny claws on metal. One of the sticky paths revealed new footprints, appearing as if by magic. They're moving exactly where we predicted, Min-ji whispered, watching the patterns emerge. Jiho signaled everyone to stay still. The footprints continued, moving toward one of their prepared areas. This section had been specially prepared with a fine layer of luminescent powder, invisible under normal light, but it would stick to anything that touched it. Suddenly, a tripwire triggered. A soft alarm sounded, and emergency doors sealed the section. In the confusion, something small and fast darted across the powder-covered floor. As it moved, its outline became visible, covered in the glowing powder. They could finally see their intruder's true form. Now, Jiho called out. Min-ji activated the section's atmospheric controls, releasing a harmless but heavy gas that sank to the floor. The gas would make the powder stick more effectively, preventing their intruder from simply brushing it off. The creature, now partially visible, scrambled for an escape route. But Jiho had prepared for this. Every possible exit led to another trap, each one simpler than the last. The intruder was being guided, step by step, into a contained area. It's working, Yumki said with growing excitement. They're actually falling for these simple traps. Jiho watched carefully, noting how the creature moved. Get ready with the capture field. Once they're in position, we'll only have one chance. The hunt that had frustrated the station's advanced security systems for weeks was finally approaching its end, all thanks to some powder, tripwires, and careful planning. Science Officer Sumin walked quickly through the station's corridors, carrying several small devices she had created in her laboratory. When she reached the security office, she found Jiho and the team studying their latest findings about the intruder. Specialist Park, Sumin called out. I have something that might help. She placed the devices on the table. I modified some basic motion sensors using your ideas. They detect physical movement but won't alert the intruder. Jiho examined the devices with interest. This is excellent work. The design is simple but effective. I realized something, Sumin explained. We've been so focused on advanced technology that we forgot the basic principles of physics. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution. Chief Do-won entered the room, followed by Director Hae-yun. The council has reviewed your progress, Hae-yun announced. They're impressed. Several other research stations have reported similar problems. You're the first team to come close to catching the intruder. Jiho spread out his map on the table. Thanks to everyone's help, we've learned a lot. The intruder uses these 5 main routes through the station. He pointed to marked paths on the map. They're smart, but they're also creatures of habit. Min-ji, who had been working with the engineering team, joined them. We found something interesting in the maintenance logs. Every time the intruder moves through certain areas, the temperature changes slightly. It's so small that our advanced sensors ignored it. That's not all, Yoon-soo added. Remember those scratch marks we found? Our analysis shows they're made by some kind of metal tool. The intruder isn't just sneaking around. They're using tools. Lieutenant Yun-ki, who had become one of Jiho's strongest supporters, stepped forward. I've been thinking about what you said about simple solutions. Look at this. He demonstrated a trap he had designed, combining Jiho's basic methods with some station technology. This is perfect, Jiho said, examining Yun-ki's device. It uses simple mechanical triggers, but adds some of your advanced features. The intruder won't expect us to combine old and new technology. The team gathered around the table, sharing ideas and suggestions. Even the most advanced alien scientists were now interested in learning about basic human security methods. They had begun to see that progress didn't always mean using the most advanced solution. "There's something else," Sumin said thoughtfully. "Based on the data we've gathered, I believe our intruder isn't working alone. The pattern of thefts suggests they're collecting specific information for someone else." Director Hei-yun looked concerned. "A larger organization." "Possibly," Jai-ho agreed. "But that might work in our favor. If they have to report back to someone, they'll need to follow certain routines. That makes them predictable." The team worked late into the night, combining their different skills and knowledge. Engineers worked with security officers. Scientists collaborated with maintenance staff. Jai-ho's simple methods had brought the station's crew together in unexpected ways. "Tomorrow," Jai-ho announced as they finished their preparations, "we'll set our final trap. But we'll need everyone's help to make it work." The aliens looked at each other with determination. They had learned that sometimes the best way forward was to look back at simpler solutions. Tomorrow would prove if their combined approach would finally catch their mysterious intruder. The morning of the final trap began quietly. Ji-ho gathered the team in the security office for one last review of their plan. "Remember," he said, pointing to their map, "simplicity is our advantage. The intruder expects complex technology. We'll use that expectation against them." Chief Do-won positioned security teams at key points throughout the station. Min-ji and her engineering crew monitored the basic sensors they had installed. Lieutenant Yun-ki and Officer Yoon-soo waited near the most frequently used access points. They didn't have to wait long. At precisely 900 station time, their first sensor triggered. "Movement in Section E," Min-ji reported. "They're following the usual pattern." Jai-ho nodded. "Just as we expected. Is everyone ready?" The team confirmed their positions. Months of stolen research and advanced security failures had led to this moment. Their simple traps were about to face their biggest test. The intruder moved through the ventilation system, avoiding the station's advanced security measures. But this time, every movement revealed their position. The luminescent powder they had spread showed their path. The pressure plates tracked their direction. The basic motion sensors followed their progress. "They're approaching the first checkpoint," Yun-ki reported quietly. Jai-ho watched the monitors. "Wait for it." The intruder, still invisible to advanced scanners, triggered their first mechanical trap. A series of simple barriers closed behind them, blocking their usual escape routes. The creature paused, probably surprised by such basic obstacles. "Now, Sumin," Jai-ho commanded. Science Officer Sumin activated her modified sensors. The devices released a fine mist of electrically charged particles. Nothing advanced, just basic chemistry. The particles stuck to the intruder's camouflage system, making their outline visible. For the first time, the station's crew saw their mysterious thief clearly. It was a small mechanical creature, about the size of a human hand. Its body was covered in advanced camouflage technology, but its basic form was simple, like a mechanical insect. "Fascinating," Sumin whispered. "It's a drone, a very advanced one, but still just a machine." The drone tried to escape, but everywhere it turned, it found more simple barriers. No quantum fields, no energy barriers, just physical obstacles it couldn't pass through. "Close the final trap," Jai-ho ordered. Director Hei-yun, watching from the control room, gave the command. The section's atmospheric pressure changed slightly, not enough to harm anyone, but enough to affect the drone's flying ability. At the same time, electromagnetic plates they had installed activated, pulling at the drone's metal components. The drone struggled against the simple forces affecting it. Its advanced systems could avoid detection, but they couldn't overcome basic physics. Finally, trapped between pressure changes and magnetic fields, it stopped moving. "Capture field ready," Min-ji announced. "Do it," Jai-ho commanded. A simple net, made of basic metal mesh, dropped from the ceiling. The drone, its movements already compromised, couldn't avoid it. The net's weight brought it down to the floor, where security officers quickly surrounded it. "I can't believe it," Ki said, staring at their captured intruder. "All our advanced technology, and we caught it with magnets and a net." Jaiho smiled. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Your advanced security looked for advanced threats. You needed simple tools to catch a complex thief." Director He-yun's voice came over the communication system. "Excellent work, everyone. Especially you, Specialist Park. Your simple solutions accomplish what our best technology couldn't." The drone lay trapped in its simple prison, proof that sometimes moving forward meant remembering the basics. 1 week after capturing the mechanical spy, the Stellar Horizon station had changed in notable ways. Security Chief 2-1 stood in his office, looking at the new security display. The screen showed both advanced scanning systems and basic mechanical sensors working together. Director He-yun called a final meeting to discuss their findings. The station's senior staff gathered in the main conference room, where the captured drone sat in a simple, transparent case. "The investigation has revealed several important things," He-yun announced. "The drone was sent by a rival research organization. They used our own technological advancement against us, knowing we would look for complex threats rather than simple mechanical intrusion." Jaiho, sitting beside Chief 2-1, nodded in agreement. They understood something important about advanced civilizations. Sometimes, the more advanced you become, the easier it is to overlook basic solutions. Science Officer Su-min presented her analysis of the drone. "Its design is brilliant in its simplicity. While we looked for energy signatures and quantum fluctuations, it used basic mechanical movements and simple tools. The camouflage technology was its only advanced feature. The most interesting part," Minji added, "is how it avoided our security. It didn't try to defeat our advanced systems. It simply went around them, using paths we thought were too basic to need protection." Lieutenant Ki, who had been working closely with Jaiho during the past week, stepped forward. "Based on what we've learned, we've created new security protocols. We're calling it the Park Protocol, after our human specialist." Jaiho looked surprised at this announcement. Director He-yun smiled and continued. "The Park Protocol combines advanced technology with basic security measures. Every security checkpoint now has both kinds of protection. We're also training our security teams in what we call basic awareness, looking for simple signs of intrusion. Other research stations have requested information about our new system," Do-1 reported. "They've had similar problems with advanced security failing to catch simple threats. The Park Protocol will be implemented across multiple stations." Officer Yoon-soo demonstrated the new security measures. "We've installed basic motion sensors alongside our quantum detectors. Simple pressure plates work with advanced scanners. Even our maintenance paths now have both mechanical and technological security." "But the most valuable lesson," Director He-yun said, "isn't about security systems. It's about perspective. We learned that progress doesn't always mean using the most advanced solution. Sometimes the best answer is the simplest one." Jaiho stood to address the group. "Your station has the most advanced technology I've ever seen. But technology is just a tool. The real strength of security comes from understanding basic principles and being willing to use any method that works, no matter how simple it seems." The meeting concluded with a formal ceremony. Director He-yun presented Jaiho with a special commendation, making him the station's permanent security consultant. The award was a simple metal badge, no advanced technology, just a basic symbol of recognition and respect. As the station returned to its normal operations, things were different. Security officers carried basic tools alongside their advanced equipment. Engineers checked simple mechanical systems as carefully as they monitored quantum fields. The station had found a new balance between the advanced and the basic. Jaiho's temporary assignment had become something more important. A reminder that sometimes the best way forward is to remember where you came from. The Stellar Horizon station had learned that being advanced didn't mean forgetting the basics. In fact, it meant understanding them better than ever.